because I am so moved by what I've heard tonight. And I would just like to make one little correction. When everybody says Alex, I'd like you to say Alex and Anissa, because there's another 24/7 single mom, same situation as me, full-time onto this because for some reason we're wrapped up into the existence of salmon, and I really don't know how that happened to Anissa, but I know it happened to me because I went to this place in the wilderness. I actually followed whales there. I plan to be a serious biologist and just study whales and avoid all environmental issues. But when the salmon farms displaced the whales, by then I was raising my son there, and I loved the place. And I thought, well, I should be moving because a serious whale researcher would go where there's whales, but my boss is that Broughton Archipelago, and she is ruthless and demands that I'm out here all the time. A couple of months ago, I was adopted into 2 First Nation families, one from Kinkum, one from Wisdoms, and they named me Ramsey and ordered me to keep fighting for the wild salmon. So I do have a slideshow here, and I'll go through it, but and I'll go through it quickly because it's late and we have some fishermen. But it is fixable. And these diseases that are in the salmon from the salmon farms are deadly. They're influenza, they're heart virus, they're salmon leukemia, they're sleeping sickness. They have come into our homes and taken samples away from us. That law that just about passed would put me in jail for 2 years to tell you what I'm going to tell you tonight. The government is hiding this because a minister and the premier of this province have told trade partners that there is no problem. And so I think it was Rick who said when DFO is protecting wild salmon, it is for the economics of the province. And that is exactly the problem. But the relationship between the people and the fish has been lost. And it is fixable, but like an oil spill, we have viruses pouring into the ocean. Right now, people up and down the coast are telling me about dead farm salmon moving over docks, moving into trucks. Anissa and I spent all night up in Campbell River watching a truck, having marine harvest vehicles going around us, the police going around us. We thought we were being stealthy, and we realized later on they were watching us the whole time. But never mind, we're not so good on the sleuthing. But there's something major going down on the coast right now for disease, and whether we catch it or not, I don't know. But it is fixable. However, it is deadly. Okay. Blue wall wild salmon is definitely up to us. There's just no question about that. This is Broughton Archipelago. It's up off the north end of Vancouver Island, cradled between Kingston and Miami. June, can you see?
Yep.
Okay. We live in float houses there, and when the salmon farming industry came, we thought it was going to be a good idea. We had a 1-room school. There were only about 200 people in that town, but we were very, very wrong. At first, they moved into our town and there were children, but it really was an invasion. And we weren't given any rights to tie up our float houses anymore. All the right to tie up was given to the salmon farms. From the surface, they don't look like a problem, but they break the natural laws of salmon. Salmon are built to move, and in the fall, when they all come up the rivers, they die. And so that they give the food of their bodies to their children, and they break the cycle of disease. But the salmon farms hold the fish stationary on the migratory routes. So when your fish leave here, they're swimming through the waste from millions of Atlantic salmon. So whatever's in those pens pours out. That means the waste from their bodies, but it also means the viruses, the drugs, the sea lice, the bacteria. During a disease outbreak, this number is actually wrong. It's 650 viral particles per hour come out of those farms. So 7 trillion viral particles per day. Some of these viruses live for 13, 14 days. And so they've placed these farms in narrow channels, and when your fish leave this river, they are swimming through. The way fish breathe is they open their mouths and they take the water in and it passes over their gills. And so the viruses are coming into direct contact with their blood. In the natural system where the wild salmon come up and they die, the river and the tides of the ocean wash the coast clean of the sea lice and the bacteria and the virus. So when these little guys come up through the gravel and eventually go to sea, they're entering an ocean that's clean. But now, as I said, they come down and very shortly, the sockeye move very fast when they come out of this river. And in a matter of 2 or 3 days, they're up through the farms. And we see them going through there, and we see them getting covered with sea lice. And I always thought the viruses were too difficult for me to study. It turns out that they aren't difficult at all. But I spent 10 years watching what happens to them when they go by the farms for sea lice. And before the farms, they're beautiful and clean. And then when they get to the farms, they have the baby lice all over their bodies. And then as they go past the farms, the lice get older. And then they get to the next farm, and there's more baby lice. Lice are so easy to study. And I learned a lot about how the diseases from farms hit the fish as they pass them. Most feedlots deal with their manure, but not these guys. These are enormous operations with up to 1 million fish in them. This is one right near my home. And the reason they're using net pens is so that all the waste goes through. And so there's waste on the seafloor. The most important thing is the things that are drifting into the ocean. 3 days ago I went home and I was watching, we've had full moon tides, and so there's enormous tide pushing through this farm, and thousands of little fry, little salmon have their noses right into it because they're eating, and that's what they want to do. They like, wolves, hunt upwind. Well, so do the salmon, and they're just getting dosed in this. It's passing over their gills. So I took 11 of them, and I'm going to figure out what they got from these farms. They come up to us in their boats, and they say we're not allowed to come near them, but there actually is no law that doesn't allow us to go near them. So I make a point. I don't want to harass the guys on the farms, but I make a point of going near them, because otherwise soon it's going to be the law. They say, Alex, you run around everywhere in your boat. I'm like, yeah, that's what people do. You're allowed to run around the ocean. And they're trying to make it so that they own parts of the ocean. I've studied the seaweed. The seaweed changes around the farms. The fishermen who fish the shrimp in my area sometimes catch these flatfish and these growths around their bodies, and things are stuck in their eyeballs, and so they call me now and I come and take a look. I never did figure out what this is, but it's definitely related to the salmon farm. You get away from the farm, it just disappears. The salmon farm goes away, it will disappear. There's so much fish waste going into the water that little organisms like this is a beautiful little organism called Noctiluca. It's like a little globe with a tail on it, but when it gets too much food, it overproduces and it smothers in orange and absorbs all of the oxygen. This one's not toxic, but it does take the oxygen out. This is Atlantic salmon. The commercial fishermen of the coast know me, that I want these Atlantic salmon, and they bring them to me. The fish farmers say they don't eat wild fish, but here's a little salmon scroll in it. That fish had been out of the pen approximately 10 days and already learned to catch wild fish. We don't know how much wild fish they're eating. There are sockeye in their pens. I have pictures of them. There's tons of herring. There's juvenile pink salmon. I took the biggest company to court for having pink salmon in their pens, and They pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and they got off. But there's tons in, and I'm talking to First Nations in the Broughton area to say, let's just go on the farms and demand to see what's in it, because that's an illegal harvest. This is the blood water coming out of a packing plant right in the narrows off Campbell River, where most of your fish are going. They're pressing through these narrow channels. This is red, but it's down at 60 feet. The plant operator says there's nothing in that, but a friend of mine who took this picture held a net over the bottom of it and brought it to the surface and put it in jars and sent it to me on a bus, and it was full of sea lice hatching. So if there's sea lice hatching in this blood water, then the bacteria and viruses are also alive. This is not allowed in Norway. And these salmon farms are 98% Norwegian-owned, 3 companies. And they are, people are trying to get rid of them all over the world, wherever they go. Government turns a blind eye. I tell them there's sea lice in here, there's pieces of heart, there's pieces of fin. They're like, no, 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 there's a screen over it, Alex. No, there's not. There's nothing I can do to convince them that it's different. Those are the hatching sea lice. The Cohen Commission was an extraordinary event. Justice Cohen, it's funny talking in front of a lawyer, to correct me if I say anything wrong, but Justice Cohen basically asked the government and anybody else to put into a database everything that they thought might relate to what was happening to the Fraser sockeye. And 500,000 documents ended up in there. And as a participant, I had the keys to it. And I said to my lawyer, I said, oh, they're not going to put anything good in there. And he's like, are you kidding? 500,000 documents? You go look. I spent 9 months in a chair because I learned so much. It was like, oh, okay. I read emails about me. I read emails about things I'd seen. I read emails about how the Norwegian companies are irritated with First Nations because they're so slow in giving up the right to allow them in there. Statements like, oh, get them used to shellfish farming and then bring in the salmon fish farming later. I read the disease databases. Justice Cohen got the disease databases away from the salmon farmers, away from the provincial government. He's the only man who's done that in the history of this industry anywhere, and I read every single line of it. And that's when I began testing for viruses. Government knows way more than they're saying. In fact, their own scientists figured out what's happening to the wild salmon in southern New Crucial information is being suppressed, hidden, and ignored. There's only one thing that explains about the Fraser sockeye. There's only one thing that explains why they began to vanish in the early 1990s. Why only certain runs of Fraser sockeye are vanishing, what was found in them, why they returned in 2010, why the cultists lick hardest hit. And here's the evidence government did not want you to know. It was all in those documents. Okay, start with timing. Here's the productivity of the Fraser sockeye. So this is how many adults return for every adult that actually spawned in the parent generation. That's exactly when the salmon feedlots went into the migration routes of the Fraser sockeye. Now, by